Hello everyone, it is me, Game Penguin 21, and today looks like we got some more stuff to go through. Now, I've been combing through a bit of the Twitter space and decided that with the other conferences and everything all done, I think it's best to just kind of take into account some of the stuff that's happened over the week, including some of the things I didn't get to cover in some of the main channel and some of the main videos that we're talking about all of these conferences. Now, again, to kind of go over very quickly each of the following conferences that were held throughout this whole thing, we had a PlayStation State of Play that was showing off some pretty mildly good stuff, not extremely spicy, but mostly okay games. And some of them were absolutely things that we've seen before and were not good. So, out of all of them, I think that was the weakest of the three that were the main stuff for this time. Apart from, say, the Ubisoft one, which not everyone was excited for as well, but I'm not going to talk about it because I don't think most people care. Next, we had Jeff Keighley's Summer Showcase, or Jeff Keighley Show, or whatever the hell you want to call it, where he actually showed off some pretty good stuff, and overall, I think that his was definitely better than the PlayStation Showcase, with the roundabout of the last Sunday, that being the Xbox Showcase with the Call of Duty one, which was by far and away some of the best content or the best marketing material for any of these video game up-and-coming games to happen this year. At least it's my own personal opinion, and that's the personal opinion of other people. Now, of course, there are several other people out there with a bunch of different sorts of opinions on this, but overall, I wanted to talk about various aspects throughout the gaming industry and just kind of shotgun you with information. And I'll just go on with that. And with that being said, I'm looking to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Please, thank you. And otherwise, I am so happy to talk today. So I think that I'll just start this off with the ending of the last video that I talked about here, which was that Jeff Keighley made an interesting comment. Now, Jeff Keighley is, of course, the person who ran the Summer Games Fest and the Summer Showcase, and he was talking in this context specifically about Gears of War E-Day, which was shown off at the Xbox Showcase. Quite interestingly, too. Now, to go over fully the actual tweet that he has here, starting off with Jeff Keighley here, he says that the great Gears of War piece was a CGI from Blur Studios, using in-game assets from UE5. Game info of all of this is basically Gears of War E-Day is the prequel to the Gears of War universe, etc., with the guy Wench, which I believe is one of the lead developers of the actual game, and he worked on the actual trailer, and I think he's working on this as well, where he responds with, "Glad you liked it. Blur developed the trailer hand-in-hand with our team, Coalition Games, using Unreal Engine 5. The trailer is developed with in-game models, textures, environments, and props that the player will see in the final game. This follows the same method that was used for Gears of War trailers for the first 3 games, which was made in Unreal Engine with in-game assets, showcasing the engine's technical capabilities. We're pushing that further with Unreal Engine 5. Now, of course, Snap Blast Play comes in here with a Jeff Keighley explodes to play down the graphics on Xbox Gears of War E-Day, getting caught red-handed. Of course, I don't fully trust this trailer to show off the actual full scope of the actual games, but I wanted to mention this because more importantly than anything else here is the fact that Jeff Keighley himself got community noted. Oh boy. Yes. So that same exact tweet of them being a CGI trailer or a CG trailer from Blur Studios was actually community noted and talked about how, while CG is a broad term, encapsulating term, the use of such a term here without further details is slightly in bad faith. According to Jamar's cinematic trailer creatures artist at Blizzard, the trailer was rendered in real time in Unreal Engine 5. It's quite interesting, really, that he says that this is a CG trailer when most of the trailers that he ended up showing at his own showcase, by the by, was actually also CG trailers. if we're going by Jeff Keighley's actual terms here. Quite interesting how very rare any gameplay was, at least in some of these conferences. I mean, again, there's a lot to talk about as well with that. Next up here, we have, of course, Reforged Gaming saying that the Xbox Showcase reaction was great, but there is a but there, and he's going to be talking about it. I'm not going to be reviewing this video, but here is one of, if not the biggest problems that I have with Reforged Gaming, at least in this context. The reason being is that when he was watching the actual state of play, or the actual showcase itself, he was out on the end of his chair, screaming at the top of his lungs, saying that's how you open an actual showcase, by watching the Doom trailer. Like, what the hell is the point here? Saying that this game was great, but you have some problems with it. I understand that you might have some problems with it, but, I mean, you already kind of gave your opinion in your live reaction. Next up here, we have Peter Ovo, who was recently a very weirdly converted PlayStation fanboy who was originally an Xbox guy, but quite honestly, I've stopped caring about him. He has a bunch of other stuff here. But he says, we're all the Xbox fanboys who said Tom Warren was lying when it leaked that Doom would be to PlayStation 5. It's almost like they said that it would be a case-by-case basis with a lot of the games that Bethesda was going to make moving forward. Kind of makes sense that they are going to be on a bunch of different platforms because of it. And if this game was to skip out on a bunch of places, I mean, that would be less money going forward. And you do not have any reason to call other people Xbox fanboys, because that's who you were before this whole thing started. Quite interesting. Next up here, we have Visual Fidelity saying everyone, myself included, compared the planet travel in Starfield to Star Wars Outlaws. Not really a fair comparison. Star Wars Outlaws only uses 5 planets compared to 1,000 in Starfield, while travel looks better in the Star Wars Outlaws. It also takes longer to arrive and both feature a landing animation. And while, again, very true, the reason why a lot of people are comparing Star Wars Outlaws to Starfield is because of the fact that, well, while, yes, there is a transitional phase, there is also, a very little breaking of immersion. The reason why a lot of people had problems with the Starfield loading screen simulator type stuff is the fact that, well, you had 5 different loading screens depending on where you wanted to go. And quite honestly, while yes, there are thousands of planets in Starfield, most of them can have been relegated to one universe where, you could have had probably 1/10 that, or 100 planets in Starfield, to be very easily split up a bunch of the story quests and then just have a bunch of more condensed map areas to be in. Again, some of the places out in the outer star systems have some very interesting stories, but they just don't get used as often. It's very weird and strange to me. But again, loading screen simulator, and this is coming from a fan of the game, by the way. Next up here, we have Nicola saying, I can't beg for something that's willingly giving to me, where Gaz says, accept PlayStation port begging to reach record levels. And I'm fairly certain that they're both talking again about the Xbox Showcase, where I wanted to just find this very, very interesting, because the next tweet is of him a bit earlier talking about personal favorites is Gears, that looks awesome, the Gears of War E-Day, Doom, obviously, Fable looks great, and Perfect Dark, South of Midnight, also to keep an eye on, like Tim Burton vibes. And those are all, and about, I think, like a few of those games are going to be Xbox exclusives, meaning that he wouldn't be able to play them on your PS5. The only one I think on any of these that at least looks like that's going to be other places that we know, or at least is confirmed for other places other than the Xbox, is Doom. So it's interesting how he is excited for all of those games, and yet if he only has a PlayStation 5, wouldn't be able to play some of them. So, I don't know. I don't know if that counts really as port begging. It might not. I might just be excited for games, which is fine. You can be excited for games, but you can't just say, oh, there's no port begging happening when, there is on your end. Just food for thought. Next up here, we have tap signs saying, learn the difference between no politics and has politics, saying that it could save your life. Now, again, both of these types of games that are talking about here having these politics of real-world politics. And I'm fairly certain that this is a response to some sort of DEI initiative or Sweet Baby Inc. initiative. And overall, the thing is that most of those things don't have the real world politics and aren't trying to say or push a specific message, or at least it doesn't feel like it's going to, or very blatantly obviously going to. Whereas the other ones on the other side do have those kinds of weird messages, at least for the modern audiences. So again, it's one of those things where this has really just DEI and SBI type whatever. So, you know what? I don't really have much else to say on this, as this is not my wheelhouse, but I just wanted to mention it because it was an interesting tweet, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. Next up here, from back to Snap Blast Play, we have Phil Spencer that he says he wants to give the choice of how you want to play it and will not try to take any of the platform forcing you to do that, whereas Sony paywalls, $10 upgrades, $70 games, remakes, remasters, Rector Scotch, and price kites, we are not the same. And again, while I do agree, this is Snap Blast Play here that we're talking about here, an Xbox fanboy, but he at least makes a correct point here, in the sense that Phil Spencer wants you to actually, play the video game and the software that he creates on any platform, regardless of where you want to play it. It doesn't really matter, just so long as you give them money. And yet, when Sony tries to do the exact same thing, I'll say, like the Lego Horizons games, and literally paywalls it and is so petty that they will not give the Xbox the Lego game, like a Lego Horizons game, which is going to be smaller. They're not going to give that to Xbox, as far as I can tell. And so, what the fuck? How is that not way pettier than anything else that's like, I don't know. But again, it's interesting how when one company says, hey, we want you to get you all the games, it's the worst thing in the world. But when PlayStation wants to port their games to, say, PC, same difference, the PlayStation fanboys spurg the hell out. Next up here, we have a COG couple with a maybe this doesn't have traditional multiplayer, instead shocked the community by adding a Battle Royale mode, with an Arash just basically parroting my own response to this, saying, why are we still asking for existing IPs to shoehorn in a Battle Royale into the franchise? Lamau. I don't have much else to say on that, but if there is a Gears of War Battle Royale, make it its own fucking game. Don't put it into the mainline series if you really, really want to, which I don't think you should. And I don't think any Gears of War fan actually fucking wants that. So, I just don't like that. But I think that we'll end this off on a more interesting story. I mentioned SBI and earlier today's stuff, but I wanted to end this off with a kind of odd sensation, and that is that Alyssa Mercante. Now, if you don't know who Alyssa Mercante is, she is/was/ continues to be a gaming's journalist, and everyone knows that that's great for the ego. Now, she, in the times of which I've not really been paying attention to her, recently found out about this story. She has challenged her people or her critics to fights in real life. Yes, she is pulling the classic 10,000 IQ gamer move of I will fight you IRL. So, what the fuck? Now, again, it's one of these clips that has been floating around the actual internet, and I just wanted to take a quick reactionary time to talk about it. So, without being said, here is the clip in question.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people, and maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
and hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse, because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
However, the way that she went about it is very strange. One of, if not the biggest things that she's been talking about is that she has not taken up on any. She says that no one has taken them up because they are pussies, and yet she has had several people contact her after this open invitation, saying that they would fight her in the ring in IRL. And yet she has rejected all of them, literally because she doesn't want it to be streamed. It needs to be a charity event. And of course, she just doesn't want it to be televised at all for whatever reason, even though the entire point of this is to televise this. Now, this also brings to mind, at least to me, one of the more interesting things in at least the video game / movie industry history, which was by a man by the name of Uwe Boll. If you didn't know who Uwe Boll was, you're about to find out very quickly. Uwe Boll was a director, or at least I believe he was a German director. He at least existed within the realms of Germany. I don't remember specifically. But he was a director of a bunch of very kind of shitty video game movies and is one of the people who was very, very clearly created the industry of bad video game movies. Now, again, he made profit on these based on various aspects, which I won't go into. But overall, he ended up actually ring fighting a handful of his critics and beat them to a fucking pulp. But in that context, he actually was able to back up what he said, and there are pictures and there is articles and video, I think, of people getting their asses whooped because of this. The whole point is to make a statement. If you were and wanted to actually back up what you said, record it, post that shit to YouTube, and don't be a pussy about it. When you receive actual challenges. Just a little bit of food for thought. And to add a little bit more interesting context here, we have Grums and Alyssa Mercante kind of going back and forth, where Alyssa Mercante has a thinking emoji when responding to Grums, who apparently has her blocked, which I guess makes a little bit of sense when you take into account that this tweet specifically received a lot of support from her specific followers, and I do love the interesting ratio here of where most of the people there have the 1.3k likes, which means that 1,000 people actually did like this tweet for whatever reason, without realizing that this is only half the story, and obviously is only half the story, whereas on June 5th, a little bit earlier than the kind of weeks of this sort of stuff happening, Alyssa Mercante also had been blocking and then unblocking to quote tweet Grums, which again is quite interesting, where she would take a screenshot of an unblocked version of Grums and then have it in the sense of she would then reblock him in order to again take the screenshot, block him again, and then that is that. It's interesting to note that, again, after Grums' whole thing where she blocked her, that means that she can no longer unblock one or unblock the other. And again, I find it also interesting how I believe if you block someone, you actually not only can't see their tweets anymore, but you also can't go onto their page and it will say that you're blocked or you have blocked them. Quite interesting indeed. In any way, shape, or form, I do believe that will be the end of that. And overall, that's really all I have to say on the matter. Alyssa Mercante and all of the other people who are salty little bitches, congratulations, you made it into the Roundup End of the Week Salt Fest. With that being said, I think that'll about do it for this episode of the salt collectors and salt miners will completely never run out of content. My name is GamePenguin21. I will probably be playing Season 3 of the finals by this point, so thank you so much for watching. If you like what it is that I do and want to support me in any way, shape, or form, hit that like and that subscribe button down in the description below. It's always lovely and lovely to see all of you guys make that happen, and I do love you all very, very much. Now, and again, thank you so much for watching, and a peace off.